It's recording right now. Yep.
Hello?
We've been trying to reach you concerning your car's extended warranty.
I have everyone's microphone off currently, but can you hear me? If so, just nod or raise your hand. Excellent, thank you. I'm gonna leave the waiting room open until 3 and then we'll get started. Mark, I don't see your microphone on. Have you got it set?
Can you hear and see me, Lyle?
I can hear you, Doug. We don't
Lyle,
necessarily.
this is Doug. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna. Mark Spivey, can you hear me? Mark, your video is on, your microphone is not. I'm gonna mute everybody until the meeting. So Darby, I'm muting you and Ron. Mark, can you hear me? If you can, give me a thumbs up because your microphone is not on. Mark Spivey, I cannot hear you. Your microphone is not on. Everyone else, I have you muted. Please leave it that way until I call on you. Whoever is JJ, your microphone is not on, if you can hear me.
Lyle, I'm here. This is Gavin Duke.
Gavin, I hear you. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Jeanette. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm gonna mute everybody until you're called upon. Gonna give it a few more minutes and we'll start the meeting.
Hey, Lyle.
Yes,
Where's Edie?
Edie is recording. She's
Okay.
recording this meeting. And I'm recording it as well. Bunny, if you can hear me, your microphone is not on. Daniel Veener, your microphone is not on also. Mal, I'm going to mute yours and
Okay.
Got quite a few people joining. We'll give it another couple minutes. Gray Thornburg, your microphone is not on. Carolyn, I'm going to mute yours until the meeting. Give it another minute. So how's everybody doing out there in virtual land? Give me a thumbs up. Yeah, all right. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna unmute the commission, and then I'm gonna read a preamble and turn it over to the chairman. So Bunny, you're unmuted. Haley, let's see, who all we got here? Ron Ferris, you are unmuted. Mal, you're unmuted. Gavin, what name are you under?
Oh, he's
Sage 7.
Stage 7.
Sorry.
Stage 7, all right, you're unmuted. Jeanette, you must be JJ. I'm gonna unmute it. Jeanette,
Hello,
JJ, okay, I've got you.
I'm good.
Okay, so I believe that is all of the commission. And I'm gonna unmute Doug Barry. All right, I believe that's everybody. Just double check here.
Jeanette does not have video, is that correct?
I don't?
No, your video is not on. If you don't want it on, that's fine. It's not.
I'm fine.
There you are.
There you are.
I'm okay if you see my black eye. I'm good.
All right. All right, I think that's everybody. All right, I'm gonna read this preamble. All board members and members of HOOC have been provided electronic meeting details and materials related to items of business due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Upon entering the meeting, all participants except the commission members and staff will be muted. The chairman will call the meeting to order and the building official will read the meeting procedures. After the meeting procedures are read, the chairman will conduct a roll call to establish a quorum and document members of the board in attendance. The building official will then proceed with items of business on the agenda. The chairman will ask for public comment at the appropriate time. At this time, all meeting participants will be unmuted to provide comment. We ask that if you provide comment, please state your full name and address. The chairman will recognize you by name, then you can speak. Please be respectful of all meeting participants by being silent while others are speaking. After a motion is made, the chairman will conduct a roll call vote to document votes of commission members. Please be mindful of background noise and mute yourself if necessary. Upon that, I'm going to turn it over to Chairman Mal Wall.
Welcome, everyone, to the April 14th meeting of the Belmead Historical Zoning Commission. Thank you all for attending. First order here is roll call. So if everyone would respond when I call your name. Gavin Duke.
Here.
Bunny Blackburn.
Here.
Ron Ferris.
Here.
Jeanette Whitson,
Here.
and myself. So note that we have a quorum here and present. We're also joined by Beth Reardon, the city manager, Lyle Patterson, the zoning official, and Edie Glasso, the city recorder, and Doug Berry, city's attorney. So first order of business is approval of the minutes from March 10th meeting. Does anyone have comments or changes? If not, do I have a motion that they be approved as submitted? I did make some minor typographical changes earlier in the day.
I move for approval.
I'll second Gabe and Duke.
All in favor? I guess we do a
Aye.
roll call.
Yeah.
Gavin,
Aye.
Bunny,
Approve. Aye.
Ron,
Aye.
Jeanette.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. So, Lyle, if you'll introduce the first piece of business.
Surely. Under old business, the first agenda item, the application for certificate of appropriateness for Province Builders John Swift, 1210 Nickel Lane, for the demolition of existing home, which is property of conservation, and construct a new single-family home. I'm going to unmute you, John. Let's see. John, you're unmuted. Who else do I need to unmute? Preston? Is that right? John, who would
I think Preston or Chris was supposed to join, but I think Chris is having bad reception in the place where he lives, so it may just be me.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, you're up.
I haven't done this before, Lyle, so I'm not exactly sure if I should be presenting or if I should just be following up or asking questions here.
Well, I'm going to put your plans up on the screen. Everyone, I'm sharing the screen. You should see it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on your house plans, and I'm going to ask the commission if they would just to direct me on what they would like to see, whether it be pictures or the plans or the certificate of appropriateness.
And I have them in front of me on my computer as well.
Bunny Blackburn, can I ask a question? Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Concern that I have is just, which I've expressed before about this house. One is the height of the house, and then second, it's a lot larger than anything else around it on Nickel Lane.
Okay. All right. I can certainly have Chris take a look at this. Chris and Preston take a look at it. Is the overall height of it, is that your concern primarily?
Height and size. We want homes to, and in the guidelines that we set forth, to blend in with the homes around them and be of typical style. And this, when you look at the section of Nickel Lane where this house would be, it's just a lot bigger. And I'm curious if, Lyle, if you may know specifically how much bigger it is than the average house on that street.
I don't have an answer to that, but I do know it looks like total under roof that I've pulled up here is just over 8,000 square feet.
Yeah, I don't know of a house even approaching that on Nickel Lane. Am I correct in that?
I would believe you're right. Yes.
Which would make just the question.
Yeah, this is Gabe and Duke.
Say that again.
Gabe and Duke, I'm wondering if we in this see the survey, but I don't see any topographic information. I do see some trees, but did we have early topo of this lot?
Yeah, I believe I would have to, I thought we had that submitted before, but yeah, I think we had a lot with the survey and topo shown on the survey.
Okay,
Yeah,
it makes it real help. Makes it real helpful to have the topo. I guess my other comment is, the height of the structure is big, but then in your inspirational photographs, there's most of the windows align across the front, and I guess the front door doesn't align with the two side windows. So there seems to be some connection that was lost between the inspirational photos and maybe the one in that elevation that's on a 2.01.
2.01. So everything in the middle of the structure, is that where you're referring to with the dormers over the upper windows? Are you referring to that?
Yeah, you've got in your inspirational photos, all of these images that you've shown look nice, and the reason it does, you have a consistency of window head heights and everything that align all the way across. And then I guess the thing for me is when you get, I don't know, can I draw on this slide?
I believe so.
There's so that's way below the transom heights, and it just seems like something with the porch doesn't jive with what the rest of the house inspirationally was trying to do.
And we're still referring to the front elevation, right?
Front elevation, correct, over the front door.
Gavin, do you have the ability to draw on these plans from your computer there?
Let's see, I think so. I need to change the color. There we go. I think that line is not high enough, but you can see where that alignment doesn't.
So those windows are taller. Those windows are a little taller than the door is what you're referring to.
Right. The front door just seems like it doesn't appear like your inspirational photos have a consistency. You can see all the way across that everything sort of aligns, and
Got it.
And I guess the front stoop just seems like it sort of diminishes that elevation. And then I would say, along with Bunny, maybe the roof cornice. I don't know if there's something you could help us with height-wise in relationship to the street. It just it seems really, really tall.
Okay.
What are the ceiling, this is Jeanette Whitson, what are the ceiling heights on that third floor?
As far as the attic,
Mm-hmm.
let me go back and look at the cross section here. I would imagine at that point, somewhere in the attic, he's probably got 9 foot or so at the top of it. It appears to be, in one section, there may even be 11 feet at one section of it or so. At the ridge, that's a little bit taller at the ridge, but I've got a section showing there's probably 11 foot in that attic around the perimeter. So the attic could be lower pretty easy. And I don't think that'll really change the overall aesthetic of the home very much.
Hey, John, this is Ron Ferris. I would echo Gavin's comments regarding the front door and its scale and proportion to the other windows, the head height specifically.
Yes.
bringing some broad summary to, we had seen this project last month and made some, I think summarized some comments. I'm not sure if they're in the meeting notes. I don't have those in front of me right now, but the discussion and the feedback we gave, I believe to Chris, was we needed to see a site plan with topography and more detailed site plan for it. And then echoing Bunny's summation of Nickel Lane, its sort of historical character and scale neighboring homes. I think what we're tall ceilings, taller than we might see height on Nickel, but I think that's contributing to a concern that we're having. Other members may speak up, but a solid argument for its height could possibly be made, or could be more convincing one way or the other as to what its immediate neighbors' elevations look like. I don't know that we have pictures of those homes. I have seen the lot and been on the street. And again, I would echo Bunny's comments about its scale and proportion being quite a bit different and larger than the other homes. I'm not as interested in its size as a footprint relative to other homes. I think there are guidelines given. There are bulk standards that you need to stay within. I don't think this board is in the position of saying that you can't meet and saddle up to those bulk standards, but I think we are commenting on its general street view. Again, I would encourage other board members to react.
Got it.
Yeah, I would agree with, this is Gavin, Ron, with that, and that it would be helpful to have, I've been on this street and I know a few neighbors down the street, and I just would like to see some other photos of examples that get close to this, or at least tie it into that fabric.
This is Mal. Yeah, the house that is submitted is roughly twice the size of anything else on Nickel Lane. So I guess I'm interested in the developer bringing us enough information that we can make an intelligent decision on whether this facility is going to fit compatibly with the rest of the neighborhood.
Okay. So I'm clear, if the garage is essentially a separate wing of the house in terms of the footprint, and the main structure itself appears to be 6,400 heated, are we looking at that and saying, the house is twice as big from the heated standpoint, or are we just looking at all structures under roof? Because the garage is a separate wing.
I think, this is Jeanette, I think we're not talking about just square footage. I think we're talking about the massing of this house. And there are allowable limits. What we want people to do when they're designing in Belmead neighborhoods is to decide what they would like in their home, look at the neighborhood, and design a home that is a melding of those two priorities. Not just coming into Belmead saying, what's the biggest house that we can build? What's the ceiling, what's the height, 40 feet? How big can we make it, with no regard to anything in the neighborhood? And to me, that's what this house feels like.
Hey, Preston Shea here, if I may.
Yeah.
You guys have me. I think I was on safe driving mode. Are you reading me?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, I, I I hate that John Swift's house here is kind of the guinea pig or the first down this road, but the home does fit within Bell Mead's standards, and it does fit within the bulk standards. And for my benefit and for everyone else's benefit, I think we're going to need a clear definition of compatibility. Is there a percentage? Is there a deviation? This home, I think this is the third or fourth time it's been presented, and the massing's never been mentioned. It's or maybe not never been mentioned, but it hadn't been a sticking point. We've worked on style and detail and fenestration, and it's, I understand, but it's kind of unfortunate that we're to this point, and we are within the bulk standards, and it looks like the project may be sunk because it is larger, which is I think honestly the nature of the beast in Bell Mead, just given what needs to be accomplished when purchasing, either as a developer or a homeowner.
Preston, may I comment on that?
Yeah, please.
We have discussed this house several times. I personally have expressed many times in looking at this, the massing of this house and the height of this house. So this is not the first time this has come up. This committee is new. We have guidelines. They're published. Compatibility on the street is very clearly stated. The only thing you need to do is drive down the street and see that this house doesn't fit well. And it's not, I don't appreciate you suggesting that that somehow we are being fickle with this as a committee member. We're trying to preserve this community. That's why this committee was formed. And
yes,
you do not have the right to build the biggest possible house you could put on a lot just because the lot can hold that. That's not a given right that we are forced to approve a house square footage just because if this house were on another street, maybe it would be appropriate in size.
Well, and also I'd like to give you the opportunity, since that is a stated part of our guidelines, to address that. Can you tell us your view of how this is compatible with the street?
Well, I wasn't necessarily saying that it was compatible or wasn't. I was on the City of Franklin's Historic Zoning Commission, and we had a set deviation from others. The term compatible was defined. I don't have the guidelines in front of me, but I don't believe that there is a set, percentage or X number of feet. So what that definition, and I don't mean to say that the commission's been fickle. This is just sort of the first time through for most anybody with this commission, and some measurable definition would be greatly appreciated.
Maybe I can address that, and the board members can comment as to their position on, let's specifically refer to bulk standards. Because this came up as we were forming this commission, and it has come up in the past. So I'll state my position on bulk standards. I think that the applicant has all the rights to hit the bulk standards, and that is a footprint coverage specifically. And there is also an FAR component that relates to what I would say relates to scale and massing. I'm not comfortable advising applicants as to a percentage reduction that we would be looking at on a project to the footprint bulk standards. What I am saying about this project, and we've said it about others, is that I think there's a way to design a home that does maximize its bulk footprint standards, but is still compatible in scale and proportion and aesthetic with the neighborhood.
I'm going to jump in if I can.
Trying to summarize.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in if I can, and I'm totally on board, but without a number, without a percentage, it'll always be open for interpretation. And I say this as someone who's been on your side of the board. Until there is a strict number, we're really, everyone's kind of shooting in the dark.
I don't think we're going to be aiming for a percentage number. And maybe I'm not sure what you're asking, Preston, but
yeah.
Are you asking for a percentage number that we would look for to be below a bulk standard?
Well, no, as in Franklin, for example, you must be within 10% of the height of the average neighboring homes. That's the sort of thing I'm looking for. Otherwise, it'll be wide open for interpretation.
Gotcha. Well, I'm not sure that, I'll jump in and say, I'm not sure the board's prepared to give that kind of, nor do we have the history to give that kind of answer to the question. If I was making this presentation from the feedback that you're getting, I would immediately have access to, and I would have diagrams of what the two neighboring residences have as an aesthetic from the street view. And those can be fairly easily prepared and shown. But I think that's what the board members, at least what I'm hearing, is that their primary concern is that it does not seem compatible with its immediate neighbors. Jump in, board members. That's my concern. And I think you can look at it in ceiling heights. We've quickly gone through a phase in total Nashville, Metro Nashville, and in Belmead that we've jumped from 9 feet to 10 feet, and now we're into 11 and approaching 12-foot ceiling heights. And that's just not the compatibility that you're going to see on some of these smaller pieces of property in the city of Belmead. Specific feedback.
I'm sorry, Ron, I didn't want to cut you off. If I could add, so I'm clear as the applicant, am I being confined to only the two neighboring lots? Or is it the neighborhood in general? I do know the most proximate lots probably do carry more weight, at least for this particular home. But I do know there are homes across the street that are much taller than the neighboring lots on my side of the street as well. So again, I'm fine with trying to adhere to the guidelines and trying to, come to some design that you guys feel would be acceptable here. But I will say, having been, my third time around here, I got to say, I'm really not certain that, I'm much more, informed of exactly which direction we need to go than I was the first time we submitted it. I will say too, out of respect to the board member that, made the comment that we're trying to build the biggest house here. We don't want that. That was certainly not my intent. That certainly wasn't my request when we reached out to Preston to draw us a plan here. It was simply to put a home here that we felt like would be acceptable for the board. But, volume ceilings, a tall attic, none of that stuff really was our intent. So I just like to feel more confident in the fact that if we were to have to go back again and make modifications here, that we have some sense of direction here, that we can at least take something we have here, whether it's just a footprint or not, and make some modifications. But right now, I don't feel like I'm really hearing that. It's almost now that this house here is designed is a home that's not acceptable.
Mr. Chairman, this is Lyle. May I ask a question?
Sure.
It looks like you got 40,000. I'm coming up with 40,075 square feet, and you've got lot square footage of 40,289. Did you have a survey done? I mean, it says per survey. You have a survey that shows that?
I've got a survey that I'm looking at. My screen's gone blank. If you'll give me a second.
I'm questioning the total square footage I'm coming up with. Now, I'm taking this off of Metro. is 7,854, it looks like. And that's your FAR. I just want to make sure we're clear on FAR. I mean, we may be, you're showing actual FAR is 75, 76 on your plan. I just want to verify that.
Actual FAR 75, 76.
That's what you're showing on the plan?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
So looks like we've got about 300 feet worth of wiggle room, which isn't a lot, but it's there.
I'd like to bring some summary to John's questions from my perspective about his comments. John, respectful of the challenges that are before you in terms of presenting to a newly formed board, I can only give you my insight, having made presentations similar to this, is that I think there's a way to study Nickel Lane and to present an argument as to why this house should be scaled and massed the way that it is, or subject to the revisions you may want to make after you study what's occurring on Nickel Lane. Broadly, that's the summary that I would give you, is that it's the burden of convincing the board that it meets the harmonious nature of the neighborhood is on the applicant. But I think one could drive down Nickel Lane and find examples of the largest homes and the smallest homes and start to formulate a presentation that would convince this board. I think I could be convinced. I would know where I would start with that. But there are examples probably that would support your case and maybe examples that don't. And where you fall in between those or with the largest examples is strictly up to you. I would say as stylistically, we have been complimentary that it is an identifiable style. It has a historical style that we can pin to it. That's one of the driving components of our guidelines. But in terms of how to make the presentation, I think it's a study of Nickel Lane. And I'm happy to answer any questions specifically past that. I don't know that we can get percentages.
Yeah, hey, Ron, this is Gavin. Also, I think the other side of the street is Metro. Is that not correct, Lyle?
It is. It's Metro. You're right.
Yes.
So really, I don't think the other side of the street comes into play. And I do know past, I think it's East Brookfield, there are a couple of residents that I've been involved in that have almost the scale, but not quite this high. That's further down the street, but there are some other examples on that side of Nickel that are a little bit larger, but not this large.
And John, I would not be beyond looking at immediate blocks or streets that are contiguous to this property. It's rear yard neighbors. I've stretched out my study of neighborhoods, and I think that there are examples beyond Nickel Lane that you could certainly bring into play. The board's going to focus, I think, on the neighborhood of Nickel Lane, West Brookfield. Drawing a blank on the street that's behind it.
Canterbury.
Canterbury. The board's going to keep its nucleus or its radius up from this property in that general area.
This is Bunny, John, again. I think that is one of the things that Nickel Lane and residents on Nickel Lane like, that it is more of a cottage type, a lot of quaint houses over there. And I think that when you think of Nickel Lane, there's certainly some newer homes that have been built there that are bigger, but then maybe they're on bigger lots. But I think that what Ron said, a study of Nickel Lane is probably the best, just to drive down there and look and see what's compatible in size-wise. And maybe you can make adjustments to this based on height, ceiling heights and such, so that the scale does not seem so much bigger than that. There probably aren't any houses on the street with 11-foot ceilings, would be my guess.
This is Gavin again. I think one thing that does make the bulk seem a bit bigger are the mansard roofs. I think it really starts to make it look taller than what the other houses look. I think that particular roof kind of sends it up to another level.
And we have, this is Bunny again, John, we have expressed this at prior meetings. We have specifically talked about the height of this house at the other meetings.
Okay.
So this is not the first time we've talked about that.
Yeah. Hey, Preston Shea here. I thought I corrected myself, and I didn't mean to say that it had never been brought up. Just that we seemed to be to a point where we were fine tuning details, and now it just seemed like a bigger shift. So my apologies if I insinuated otherwise.
Mr. Chairman, did you want to open this up for public comment?
Yes. Do we have any people in attendance who'd like to make comments?
I'm unmuting your microphones now.
Grace Thornburg.
State your name and address.
This is Gray Thornburg. We are renovating the house right next to you on Nickel Lane. And I understand your issue, but we have a 1948 house with 8-foot ceilings, and we are using the maximum FAR we have available to us on the property. And there are larger houses on the street, but this house is way far and above, at least as far as the pictures go, much, much larger in volume and mass as much as anything from your street view.
On both our house and the one next to us.
On either side.
Well, either side is now a vacant lot. So.
Well, no, excuse me, yeah. But down the street and on the Belmead side, this house overshadows everything else. The other thing which I can sort of live with is that 3-car garage going down the back. We're going to be looking at, and that's all well and good. I hope it'll be landscaped, but it is a very large side lot, massive piece as well.
That's it now. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else care to speak one way or the other? All right. So we will close the public portion. Board members, what's your pleasure? I've listened to the conversations, and I keep saying this each application, each week. The developers are coming in and they're not convincing me that what they want to do fits the guidelines that we've established.
I would agree with that.
I concur.
So I understand from the developer standpoint, you take the building envelope and you absolutely max out the square footage and the FAR for the house you want to put on it because your margins are better. So if that's what you need to do, you also need to convince this group of people that the structure you propose to put up is in keeping with the other houses in that neighborhood.
And at least present an argument for that. I haven't heard that yet. I've asked for that argument, asking to, address that part of our guideline, and I have not heard that argument.
Can you clarify that part of the guidelines specifically again, so I can at least be aware? I didn't catch the first part of it, please.
Lyle, can you read that part of our guideline?
I've got it up.
Let's read it into the record.
Well, on page 4, it's Belle Mead's Heritage Guiding Principle. It starts on page 3 and bullet points itself on the top of page 4. But I'm happy to read that, but I think in the interest of time, the applicant and his team could take a look at that. But in general, the overarching comment of our guidelines was to preserve the architectural and historical character of Belle Mead's significant historic properties, encourage development that is compatible with the character of the city's historic resources, and we are to conduct design review to assist property owners to be good stewards and utilize best practices for their properties. We expect that builders, developers, and architects will respect the tradition and architectural character of Belle Mead and design new construction of the highest possible quality. Those are certainly left to interpretation. I would reference any applicant back to last month's, I believe it was, we approved a project last month that got significant discussion on, I think it was on Ellendale, but as a example of a home that met the standards we were looking for and the type of designs, I think that's an example of one. And we were very we went back and forth with the applicant and whether the house was significant or not. But its sort of primary reason for us voting in approval was in the success of its design, massing, historical character, style. And historical character doesn't mean it has to be traditional. It just meets a specific time and place. And it was well, you could tell by the plans in his presentation that it was going to be well detailed and prepared. Those drawings, I think, are the best examples we've had to date as a board.
Preston Shea here. May I ask if there was if that one was viewed in context to its neighboring homes, or was it just an overall quality that was achieved?
Both.
Okay.
Definitely both. And it was I don't think it was this big actually, but the homes on Ellendale are a lot bigger than the homes on Nickel. John, can I ask a question? And this is just, I'm curious, as a commission, part of this committee here. Did you read the guidelines that we, as a owner, did you read these guidelines?
I did, but understandably, this was the first time I think that you guys had this board in place. Preston's office and we had the discussion about what we thought you guys would approve. What we thought would be appropriate for the neighborhood, more in particular, versus the street. And so, to a degree, I did lean on them and their expertise in order for us to basically put together a design that we feel like would be in keeping with the city of Belle Mead. So yes, it's not that I can recite them word for word, but I have a pretty good sense for what you guys were wanted. I did not think that, come today, we would be discussing the massing or scale of the home, if I'm being honest with you. But yeah, I think I guess I feel like they've done a pretty good job in trying to guide this project and what we wanted based upon the guidelines that you guys have put forth. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Lyle, you had asked us to bring summary to whatever action that we take. Do you feel that we've brought summary, or would you like that enumerated again?
I think it would be beneficial to the builder and the architect to summarize at the end what the board's looking for, so that during the next meeting they can actually call those and address those, and it'd make it easier for everybody if we could.
Well, this is Gabe, and I think for me, I would like to see the context of how they're fitting it into the fabric of the adjacent neighbors and the architecture, and bring examples of the houses that come close in scale to this. That would be most helpful to see how they're applying the neighborhood aspect.
I would, this is Bunny. I would say I'm concerned about the height of the house relative to the other houses on the street, the size of the house, the scale of the garage, and also the concern of the neighbors.
And on my notes, guys, is that we did ask for, in the last meeting, we did ask for a more detailed site plan that was not included, or I don't see it included with this. So we would certainly want that. Gavin, I think you had some specifics on that.
You were breaking up, Ron. What was it again that you said?
Site plan, you had asked last time for a more detailed site plan topography. I don't see that in this packet.
Right, the topography?
Yes.
Yeah, the site topography.
With that, I'll make a motion to defer.
Is there a second?
I second, Jeanette.
Jeanette, Ron,
Aye.
Aye.
Gavin,
Aye.
Bunny,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
That deferment, is that
Lyle, you
for
wanna
30
introduce?
days or 60 days, or are we specifying?
Well, I think based on the amount of changes that we hear, I think that 60 days is a more reasonable time frame.
Everyone agree?
I agree.
All right, shall we move to the next agenda item?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
It'll take me just a second. Second item under old business, the application for a certificate of appropriateness for Matt Bass, 429 Royal Oaks Drive, for the demolition of existing home, property of conservation, and construct a new single family.
May I ask a question on this initially? It's my understanding this property is listed for sale. Does that impact our discussion here to our Doug Berry? Does that?
Oh, in my opinion, it does not. No, we don't regulate that.
So if we approve a house, is that house approved from if someone else buys it?
Yes. The conditions this commission places on the construction would run with the land, so to speak. You don't have the authority to regulate the ownership.
Okay, so if we approve a house, even if this particular owner isn't building it, the house approval would stand.
Yes. Is there some time? I don't have the order in front of me. Is there a time limit on our approvals, Lyle? A year or something?
Yes, it's 1 year.
I think they've got to commence construction within a while. Yeah, certainly. I mean, somebody could die. Somebody could, get a divorce. Somebody could just sell their property for reasons that they're sufficient to them. There's no reason to. We just regulate what it looks like. We want not who owns it.
It's listed as a lot with a tear down house.
I could hear them. No, they can't hear me. I'm
Have
on
we
mute.
voted to approve the demolition?
No.
Hold on, we actually can hear everyone right now.
Yeah, hold on just a second. Let me.
Short answer is we approved the demolition on February 11th.
Okay, I believe I've got everyone muted except the commission. And who do we have representing for this property?
That'd be me, Lyle.
Okay.
Preston.
COVID forever and a day is going to favor how do I keep the frontline healthcare
I'm not hearing anybody.
Hey, Lyle, have we approved to get the demolition of this house already? I'm trying to remember.
Yes, we approved.
We have approved it
demolition on the 11th.
on the 11th.
This is Bunny again. I received a letter today from the, as I assume all the, everyone on the committee did. I don't know if everybody had a chance
Yes.
to from the neighbors.
I did, yes.
Did Jeanette and Mal and Ron, did y'all see that?
Yes, I did see it.
Okay.
I missed that one, but that's all right. Go ahead.
Well, it's probably good for you to have that. This is the first time that I believe that we've heard from any of the neighbors on Royal Oaks.
I have it up on the screen. I hope everyone can see it.
It's cut off.
Okay. Yeah.
There were similar concerns with this home as with the last one we just discussed, as far as the size of the house relative to other houses on the street. And that was expressed in this letter from the neighbors. And I believe it was from 4 or 5 homeowners on the street.
I don't remember that.
Well, it does look at in the meeting minutes, if I'm correct, I wasn't present, but reading the minutes, there was a lot of discussion about the site plan and the grading. And there's questions from the neighbors about drainage issues here. Lyle, can you address any of this?
Yeah, I do recall that. We had an issue with the wall here on the left side, I believe. But the drainage issue. Preston, can you address that?
Yes, sir. We, at the last meeting, or a couple previous meetings ago, we had fine-tuned some of the detail work, defined some materials, and then the landscape architect was going to go back in, and I believe it was at the commission's request that we minimize the exposure of the foundation. We had some walls of existing homes with a retaining wall that the commission looked upon favorably. So we added the wall that you see there on the left in order to, again, minimize that exposure of the foundation.
Okay.
And we'd also submitted the site plan, retaining and grading plan as well that shows this new wall.
And if memory serves, they also dropped the finished floor elevation of the house.
Right, on steps. I remember that now.
Yeah.
Lyle, can you pull up the revised and new site plan? Because I don't see it in my packet.
You're going to have the same thing that I do. So if it's not in this packet, we don't have it. And
Yeah, I've got the old one, but I don't have a new presented one.
what I recall was specific comments relating to the retaining wall on the left side and the study of the grade and the building's height and massing. And we asked the applicant for a detailed site plan with topo showing all proposed improvements.
You don't have it.
We don't have it. So I can give some general feedback to its design, but I'm inclined to move for a deferral until we have the items that were requested. I have looked I was given a link to its listing as a property for sale, and there are extensive improvements being made that would need to be represented in the site plan from what's being presented as for sale. But hard for me to comment past that.
Well, I'm reading the minutes from the last meeting, and Bunny asked that we defer it from the last meeting until we got a grading plan, which we still don't have. So I think a motion for deferment is in order.
Good.
I so move, Jeanette, move to defer it.
Second.
I'll second Bunny.
I think we've got
Bunny?
2 seconds.
So can I ask a question, Mal? When we just because for expediency, when we request things and they come back before they have those things, is there a way to keep them allowed from coming before us until those things that we've asked for are there?
There's a checklist on the certificate of appropriateness. And I mean, I literally made a checklist just for this very thing. That, along with the summary at the end of discussion, should be enough.
I'm sorry, I lost you a second there.
Well, the checklist provided on the certificate of appropriateness, along with the summary made at the end of each of these discussions, should be enough to guide the architect and homeowner on a direction.
Yeah, Lyle, if I may, my apologies. We had a site plan originally. What we were lacking was the revised site plan. I had instructed the surveyor to send that in directly, had copied you and the builder and the surveyor. I was not aware that he had not sent that in, so my apologies for that. But we were working on that, and it was an item that we were aware of.
Okay.
Well, you're deferred.
May I ask a question? This is Jessica Wiener. I'm one of the neighbors.
Yes, ma'am.
Name and address.
Jessica Wiener, 433 Royal Oaks Drive. Is there a similar timeline since the demolition has been approved? Is there a timeline by which that needs to occur?
Lyle, what do they have, 6 months?
I'm sorry, can you
can
repeat
use
the
the
question?
sketch paper from your art book.
Is there a deadline by which the demolition needs to occur since it was approved in February?
Typically, you have 1 year, but on the demolition, honestly, I'm not sure on the timeline for that. Typically, you have 1 year to act upon the approval of the commission.
And if they demolish it to sell it, are there regulations to keep the site up? They have not, the
Yes.
current owner has not maintained the site.
Yes, we have maintenance that has to be done for every property. A lot of times when a home is sold, sometimes in the transfer, the grass cuttings and keeping up the home, if it's still standing, kind of goes unnoticed. So yes, we definitely have that.
Thank you.
Hey, Lyle, it's Duncan Dash at 425 Road. If I could ask the question.
Sure.
The demolition approval, and I've asked for forgiveness here on the front end with the commission because I'm just getting better versed in some of the guidelines here. The demolition that was approved, was that approved under the heading of that either the home not being fit or under the heading of building a new proposed home with a plan to be approved?
Which, by the way, he has a ton of them already. I mean, you know where the reference labs actually are.
Wait, I can't hear the second person.
Yeah, me either.
Who else is talking?
Is there someone else speaking?
This is Duncan Dash if I'm still here. I'm just trying to get the clarity around the basis for demolition approval.
I can answer the question. We approved based on, first step to their presentation was whether or not it was a property of significance. Jump in, board members, but I believe we determined that it was not, and we approved demolition.
Yes.
It was not contingent upon a design.
Okay. So at recognizing that it's been deferred as it relates to the plan and not necessarily being well versed in sort of the ins and outs relative to the owner selling the property, I feel comfortable saying that at least for certainly my family here, I think much of what was said about the Nickel Lane property would apply from our point of view here in terms of the currently proposed plan and aesthetics relative to the rest of the neighborhood.
Okay. So do we have?
Wiener again, and I agree with that.
Okay, thank you.
This is funny. I want to say thank you to neighbors. We really appreciate neighbors letting us know how they feel. They're on the street, whether in support of a decision or not in support of, and we appreciate you all taking the time to write the letter and to be a part of this meeting.
So do we have a motion on the table for deferment?
I'll make a motion to defer. This is Gavin.
And a second?
I'll second it. Ron Ferris.
Bunny?
Aye.
Gavin?
Aye.
Mel? Aye. Who am I missing?
Jeanette?
Aye.
Jeanette, aye.
Jeanette?
And Jeanette.
Aye.
All right, deferred. Lyle?
Is it 30 or 60 day deferral?
60 days.
Okay.
Preston Shea here, excuse me. I don't know if it's too late to comment. I don't know that I was really able to comment on the last couple of board comments. Is this again a case where the street needs to be studied, the home needs to be presented in such a way as to convince the commission to allow the massing and scale of the home?
Well, two things. This is Jeanette, is that first, the documents that we requested at the previous meeting were not presented. So we didn't get to that point of discussing it, but that is always going to be a requirement in front of this board.
That I understand.
Yeah.
But I thought I heard a parting comment regarding the size of the home, because again, we were, even in the historic zoning meetings, we were to a point where we were fine-tuning grade and fine-tuning materials of columns and that sort of thing. And so my question is this wholly up for or holistic debate, I guess, regarding size and scale and massing, as was the Nickel Lane project?
The 5 cent summary of the progress on this house is the first plan that was submitted. It looked like it was sticking up out of a rocket launching pad. So the board basically said, what can you do to drop the profile of this thing? And if you're fine tuning grading plans, that's the piece of information that we haven't gotten yet.
Correct. I understand that, and that is all in place, and I will submit that. And I don't need to take 60 days to do that, but
and you don't have to. You can come back next
okay.
month.
Great.
And your job when you come back is to make a case for why this house on that lot fits with its neighborhood.
And I think some of the commentary you heard today was from concerned neighbors.
Okay.
I would take that into consideration because I think as we progress, you will hear more comments from many neighbors.
Okay.
I would also,
board, I think that is something that we as a board, as I expressed a while ago, this is Bunny, we're going to listen to that. We care about what the homeowners on the street think about new homes.
And I think a good example too, this is Gavin, is the one on Ellendale. It didn't put every bit of its bulk up front. It, even though you have a maximum FAR and you have mass structure, it sort of distributes on the lot. And you can do that creatively and not have, to tie it into the neighborhood. I think it would help to see what's on that block.
I'm looking at my meeting notes for the benefit of the applicant. And the summary that I took from what we commented on last time was the discussion about the scale and proportion of the house and the fact that it was being raised up to create a lower level basement. I would also say that the neighbors have sent out an email that shows this house in three-dimensional modeling that does not include it's based on, I think, on the first presentation that was made that echoes and only further demonstrates the concerns that the board had, how the house is sited on the property. I'm sure that's going to be viewed by everybody now that it's on the internet. So just to give you a heads up, it's out there. It'll be viewed stylistically. It has an identifiable style, and I think the front elevation is targeting and aiming at a style and history significance that the board I can be comfortable with. But how you address the massing and overarching comment last time was the fact that it was graded and its finished floor elevations were positioned in order to accommodate that lower level. And that was a big concern of the board's.
Yeah, I believe that we had discussed that there was a sort of an odd cross slope to the lot, left and right and front to back. There's an existing basement.
Yes.
Not with the ceiling height. It wasn't as tall though. I mean, I've looked at this property. This is Bunny again. It wasn't this dramatic. The ceilings were not as, the height wouldn't have been as much. That's the concern we've expressed, and which is why we wanted to see more on this. Thank you.
Lyle, next item.
Next item under old business, number 3, the application for certificate of appropriateness for EL Jack Custom Homes, LLC, 4310 Sunnybrook Drive for the demolition of existing home, property of conservation, and construct a new single-family home. And give me just a second to open up the microphone. Okay, Mark Spivey, you are up.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm looking back on my notes from last month and all of my furious scribbling that I did with all of your suggestions. And So can I just kind of go through what was asked of us and kind of the changes that we made?
Sure.
Okay. So this federal style house is what we are calling it. We went from a roof pitch of a 10/12 to a 9/12 to soften it down. That was one of the things brought up, that there was the roof was just too massive up front. We raised the eave on the house up 6 inches, but we lowered the roof ridge line by 12 inches. We made the dormers on the second floor on the front of the house. We made them 8 inches wider and taller, which I feel like it made them more proportional to the roof. We lowered the stone water table in the front to create, some good separation from those windows. We added shutters to the front of the house. We beefed up the dormers on the front of the house on the second level. We went ahead and changed the roof above the front porch. Let's see, we moved the house 5 feet to the right, giving us a 20-foot setback on the left side. We added on the left elevation of the house, we added 3 additional windows, and it looks so much better. Thank you. And then on the back of the house, we added stone piers to the bottom of the 12-inch post on the back deck. We added more decorative roof vents on the right and the left elevation at the top. And we changed the window grids to 6/6. And that is the changes that we made.
Group, do we have comments?
I guess my first comment, Gabe and Duke, is the stone veneer. I know last time, are there samples of that, Lyle, that we got, or do we know this is a true bed stone, or is it I thought I saw somewhere it mentioned a veneer, so that concerns me a little bit. It says natural stone veneer, but is that a true bed stone?
It is true bed.
Yeah, we talked about that last time, that needed to change on the plans too. We actually discussed this last time.
Does it still?
It says above left elevation, it says natural stone veneer.
Yeah, when I originally went over this with Lyle, he impressed upon me that it had to be full bed stone, and I told my architect that, and that's just it should not be there. It is definitely a full bed stone all the way around the house and on the entire chimney.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that we're missing also is on your front elevation, you're showing a flat grade across here. And then I flipped to the right elevation, and I guess I'm wondering, for the distance that you have there, something has to happen to get you down to that garage level. So I'm not sure in the site plan it represents that, because there's no wall shown here, and there's a very short distance to go from flat to about, what are your floor heights between finished floor, main floor, and the garage? Looks like it's on A5. Looks like 11 feet.
Okay.
So I'm, just in resolution, I think you want to sort of look at how that is going to affect your front elevation.
Okay. I mean, it would, okay. I mean, it looks like it might reveal, to your alluding to, it might reveal more stone on that front right corner.
Well, I just need to know how you all are going to resolve it, because it would drop off significantly from the front porch going right to
Okay.
that side of the house. So I don't know if it's a true representation in the elevation, and then I don't have a grading plan to see other than there's existing topo, but there's no proposed topo. And I'd also check I think driveways have to be 5 feet off of the property line. Lyle, is that correct?
Yeah, we discussed that last time too.
So just making sure it's 5 feet off of the property line.
Okay.
And the other note I would say is, this is a pretty significant street. And if you're looking at this right elevation, you got a lot of blank space on the front side. I know there's a master closet there.
Right.
But you might entertain the idea of some faux windows or closed shutters that look like windows, or maybe it just looks like a big blank spot on that corner when you view it from the street.
Yeah, and he's already added some, which I appreciate.
Yeah. I mean, we added 3 windows to that side. I mean,
But it's still toward the front there. Do you see how much from that?
right.
Yeah, in that exact area. That's just a very, and you're going to see that when you're coming up the street.
Okay.
You'll see that to the right.
Okay.
And that's a very big blank space to Gavin's.
So would you like to see faux windows with like shut gutters? Is that? Because it is in a master closet. I don't know that.
Even if there were shut shutters, I think.
Okay.
Well, that would require shutters on the windows on that whole side,
Yeah.
because it's not going to look correct. I don't think there's room for the shutters the way that the windows are spaced out.
Okay. It's
And you could consider putting
can't see
windows
that
in the
second floor.
closet. I see what Jeanette's saying is that it's gonna be strange to have one shuttered window and nothing else is shuttered.
But I'm also understanding the interiors of this house, and putting windows in a master closet constricts what you're doing in there, and you're really trying to maximize your closet space out. So I'm just trying to think of, how to resolve that for him.
right. I mean, we added 2 windows on the main level in the master bedroom, and then we added, one up in a guest room upstairs.
It already looks better.
Yes. I mean, we could plant a tree there. I mean,
That'd be a top 3. I don't think so on that slope.
You're probably going to end up having some type of retaining wall there to keep the grade up in the front.
Yeah.
right.
I
think so too.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I tuned out a while ago. Do we have a topo of this?
No. Not the proposed.
Let me jump in and make some comments relative to what Gavin was advocating from what I'm reviewing here. If I'm going to start at the front elevation.
Okay.
I agree with Gavin that the front elevation and the grade line does not seem to in any way correlate to what is on the site plan. If you look at the cross section on sheet A8, they have, I'm not sure that it matches the site plan either. I'm not interested in taking the time to study it in that detail, other than I know that it doesn't match the front. And we're going back to the front. That site's going to impact the scale and proportion of what is viewed for this from the finished floor level down. It's going to change the proportion and scale of the house, so it needs to be accurate.
Okay.
As far as the federal style, I would encourage you to take a look at federal style dormers. And federal style of how roof lines are terminated. If you
Okay.
go to the side view of this house, let me back up and say I'm struggling with the assignment of federal style to this house. I don't see it.
I just
Okay.
looked it up, actually, Ron, in our a field guide to American houses, and it does not meet the criteria for a federal style home.
Okay.
Federal and Adams style are almost interchangeable, but just a simple Google search you'll find some very pure, simple federal styles. I will say that the house has the direction of taking it towards that simplicity. It's just that the details of the dormers, how the eave lines are terminated, don't, to me, align with a federal style house yet. It seems to be getting there, but it's not there yet. The asymmetrical gable on the garage side, I struggle with that as in any way being federal.
Okay.
I hear you and appreciate the effort to make the comment on the eave line got raised and the ridge line got lowered, but the space between the top of the windows and the gutter line, I don't know what that dimension is, but it seems proportionally, I struggle with that.
Are you talking about on the front elevation?
Front elevation, yeah.
Okay, can we go back?
Yeah, front
Okay.
elevation.
So you're,
Lateral.
okay, so what are you,
The distance
front
between
windows?
the head of the windows and the gutter line, right there, whoever's drawing that is correct.
Do you want to see those windows taller?
You know, I want to see that dimension reduced, and I want to see if it's federal style. I want to see it brought into federal style proportions and scale, I guess would be my best comment.
Okay.
I guess how far are those windows and the dormers from the floor level upstairs?
I
Val,
can't.
do you,
Well, here's finished floor here. I'm on the right side here. There's
right,
Okay.
that, you see that annotation mark? That's what they're referring to.
right. I mean, I can get with my architect and see, you know, how much we can raise those windows up. It's the distance between the windows and the gutters you feel is too much.
It's top
So the
heavy.
first floor.
Thought of the.
Okay. Do you have a,
Mark, you used an example early on, and I would encourage you to study it some more. It's a house on Forsyth.
right?
I would work with your architect on that because the
Okay.
proportions are correct on that house.
Okay. All right. That's what we'll do then. And hopefully by the next meeting, we can have the completed topo. He just didn't, he didn't have it finished. But I do agree. I mean, it will, on that right side, we're going to have something to hold that ground up. It'll probably be a stone wall there, a short one.
Yeah, and I think you'll need that survey for submittal for a permit as well, and any stormwater that you'll be having to do.
Okay. All right.
So do we have a motion for deferment?
Motion to defer. That was Bunny.
Second?
Second, Jeanette.
Okay. Gavin?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Mal? Aye. So deferred for 60 days.
But the 60-day, I want to be clear on that. The 60-day, if they are ready within 30 days, they may resubmit.
Right. Absolutely.
All right, moving on to the fourth item under old business. First, I'd like to just mention for public comment, I just want to remind you, please say your name and address. Number 4, the application for certificate of appropriateness for Chandelier Development, 100 Bellevue Drive South, for the demolition of existing home, property of significance, and construct new single family. And I believe this is Joel Lyons and Preston. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. This is Joel Lyons speaking.
Joel, your mic is on, and Preston,
Lyle,
yours is
before we
on.
begin, we haven't assigned this for demolition yet, right?
That's correct.
Have not.
Okay.
Joel, you're up.
Lyle, part of our submittal package, I included a PowerPoint presentation. Do you have access to that?
Yes.
On
Just a
screen?
second.
Lyle, do we have a topographic survey of this one as well?
No, there is no topographic survey yet. I should have that.
Joel,
set.
what do you want me to open here?
Let's see the PowerPoint presentation. We spent a good bit of the time last month talking about the demolition of the current home. At that time, I had not had access to the home. After the meeting last month, I did view the property inside and out a couple different times, and I took a number of pictures.
I'm getting to it, Joel. Hold on. You keep talking. I'm getting to it.
So, number one, the home, as far as my belief that it needs to be removed from the property, is number one, it has 8-foot ceilings on the first floor and second floor. That presents major challenges on ceiling heights, obviously. Number two, it's on a 1930s stone foundation. The backyard grading goes straight to the basement. Every rain event, there's standing water in the crawl space. So that's a major issue. Inside the home, structurally, it's got some major problems. The stairs are about to cave in. There's numerous leaks and mold all over the home, ceilings, walls, exterior walls. There's a lot of dated materials that are concerning when, as far as asbestos and lead paint and things of that nature. So I put together a slideshow that showed a number of those pictures, the things I'm describing. Lyle, I emailed you yesterday as well. We had a lot of rain Sunday. I went back over to the property Monday morning, and there was standing water throughout the crawl space.
All right, your presentation looks like it's up.
Yes, that's it. Thank you, Lyle. So just a quick list. I've probably touched on a good bit of this already, but water intrusion and flooding occurs in the basement. There's a number of, the pier posts or tree trunks. There's water lines. You can see in this bottom left corner and straight ahead at that 55-gallon, you can see that on rain events, it floods with water. Those water lines, you can see the washer and dryer on cinder block. These are two corners of the stone foundation. Obvious water damage and mold. That's the other two sides. This picture here represents the backyard. You can see that it's sloped directly to the basement. And this is access to the basement from the outside. It just, again, that grade just invites the water down to the basement. This is first floor. The purpose of this picture is to show that the ceilings are 8 foot tall. This is in the foyer. number of significant cracks in ceiling, a lot of water damage. These are the stairs. You can see how they're kind of bowed inward, structurally unstable. Picture to the right is some type of ECT linoleum that most likely has asbestos given its age there. This is in the corner of a kitchen, an exterior wall. Noticeable water damage and active leaks taking place there. This is another portion of the kitchen. And over time, there's 2 wings added to the property. Both probably have 7 or 8 foot tall ceilings. They're on slabs, so there's really no way to access them for utilities and rough ends. Second floor here, again, 8 foot ceilings. You got window HVAC units. You can see there on the right. This is an active leak and water damage in an exterior wall. You can see excessive cracking in ceilings throughout the home. This is another back left bedroom. You can see active water leak there by the window. Mold, more cracks. Essentially every room has got water intrusion. This is one of the bathrooms that do not use. None of the plumbing system works throughout the house. Another active leak in the top left-hand corner. Additional cracks, leaks, major cracking in the ceilings there. You can see this ceiling looks like it's about to come down. It's in very, very bad shape. This is more water damage and active leaks, cracking. So all that said, a lot of discussion last month was, about preserving the home, and unfortunately, I think it's just beyond repair for a lot of the reasons that I presented here. So my request would be for approval to demo the current home. One other thing I would like to comment on, and one of the neighbors spoke for a good time last meeting, made a couple comments that I would like to address myself. Number one, she was presenting or saying that the family would be devastated to have this house torn down, all the while they were presenting it to the market as a tear down and not allowing folks to enter the property, which I touched on last time. What I also found out after the meeting is the neighbor that spoke up was in contact with the seller, hoping to sabotage my contract and had me back out because she wanted to purchase property. So she was upset that I got the property before her, and apparently was behind the scenes trying to sabotage our contract. And this information came from the person I purchased the property from. So I did want to point that out. Secondly,
Can I ask a question? This is Bunny. So you did not, when did you close on this property?
I closed.
Since our last meeting?
Yeah, it's been a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
Zillow says it closed March 20th.
It was somewhere around there.
But since our last meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm gonna, I think that we're gonna discuss these in 2 phases as we generally do, with demolitions first. And I'm gonna reiterate, I think that this house is exactly why this commission was founded, to preserve the old homes in our area. Yes, the home has water damage. It is built on a stone foundation. Yes, there's water in the basement. These are all things that are typical with old homes that need to be renovated. And I suspect we're gonna hear from some other neighbors today, but we've had overwhelming support not to tear this house down and requests from the people on the street. So I want to make sure that everybody on our commission is well aware of that. And is there anybody else, Lyle, that is going to speak today from the street?
Yes, Chairman, you want me to open it up for public comment?
Sure, let's do that now.
Okay, I believe everyone is unmuted. Please state your name and address. Be recognized by the chairman.
I'm Carolyn Sorensen, and I live at 106 South Bellevue Drive, adjacent to the property.
Okay,
and,
go ahead.
My husband and I sent a letter to the committee with our concerns about the proposed new design for the house that you all should have.
Yes, I think everyone got that. It was in the Google Doc packet.
Yes.
Well, can I ask if that's the current design or the previous month's?
We were not at the previous month's meeting, but did make comments on that previous design, and this is on the current design.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, has the design changed from last month?
It has, yes, sir. Given some of the initial feedback to make the home more in keeping with the neighborhood, we went from an Italianate style to a colonial revival style, which is very well established on that street. So the character of the home has changed completely. The massing and whatnot has not.
So Lyle, which set of plans are we looking at?
This is the latest submittal.
That is that's the latest version.
And Lyle, this is the one that's on public record. People are able to look at this.
Correct.
The neighbors.
Yes.
Yes.
So all the neighbors speaking have seen this plan.
Okay. It's been available on website, and anyone could email, and I could email the plans back to them. I think we have 4 letters from neighbors that are in this Google Doc packet that I sent out. So I'm assuming everyone had a chance to look at those.
Okay, is there anyone else in attendance who would like to speak to this this proposal? We do have 2 other letters in support of keeping the house or not demolishing the existing house. Where I stand on this one is I sure wish it could be saved, but I'm 50-50. It may be too far, maybe too late. But what I'm absolutely certain of, having walked up and down that street today, is that putting a 7,000 square foot house on that street is just something we can't do.
Good.
I would like, this is Bunny again, comment on this again. I do think that this, and I'm going to say it again, the reason that we want to save these old homes. When we lose these homes over time, we lose the history of Belmead. And it's not, I don't think it is beyond repair. I've renovated a 1920s house that was in about the same shape. And the water issues can be dealt with. And I think it's lovely the way the house is situated on the lot. Yes, the wings on the side are on slabs, and they're clearly a later addition anyway, but I would encourage the owner to renovate it and do an addition on it. And respect the history of it. I mean, this is the exact reason that I think that this commission is formed, because of the loss of old homes.
It's their call, really.
Well, and this,
Mute.
and I've renovated a lot worse from the ground up.
Meg, I saw your house. It's so cute.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
Mute.
I'm on this historic Belmead call. The one they're trying to knock
Can we
down.
move that? Mute somebody.
We need
I'm going to unmute each of you one at a time. Somebody has got something going on in the background.
Yeah.
Okay, board members, I'm sorry, commission, you should be unmuted now.
Yep.
If the rest of you would please check
I
your
guess I had,
background microphone and mute yourself, please. I'm going to unmute again.
Oh, y'all grew up together. I know.
Okay, all right.
Who is that?
Haley. It's Haley.
Tell
I
someone.
I got her muted. Go ahead.
Right.
Jeanette, can you repeat? I didn't get to hear what
I'm
you
sorry.
said.
This is Haley, and that was not me. I am laughing so hard. Just wanted y'all to know.
I think it's Kemp Button.
Okay.
Her microphone is off.
Okay. Jeanette, will you repeat?
Yeah, I want to say that, you know, I understand the water issues and the neglect issues in the home. And, you know, I've done many houses that have been much worse than this. I think it would do to assess when we're talking about something that we do think has significance, that it may be loud, that there needs to be an inspection of the home to, you know, to assess how far gone the systems are. Are there plaster walls? Is it structurally sound? I mean, before we decide that we're going to allow the demolition of this home due to condition, I think we have to have a little bit better showing than just a pool of water on the floor in the basement and saying the grading slopes to, I mean, you always have to regrade if you've got an old house. They just didn't understand it. So, you know, I would hope that this is something that could be renovated. And oftentimes when there are later additions stuck on the side that don't work, that are on slabs, they could be taken down. But it preserves the structural integrity of the original house to allow you to create square footage that you would like for modern living. I do understand the 8-foot ceilings. Many times there's ways to bump up through, you know, another floor, something like that can be creative. I'd like to see more thought brought into preserving the house as it is, because nothing that I saw really showed that the house is too far gone to me. And Lyle, have you been in it to inspect that and to see that?
I have. I went in it 2 or 3 weeks ago. It does have a good bit of water damage.
Okay.
You know, it's the typical stone foundation as Joel has described it. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory in the pictures that he has presented. It is plaster. The stairs are not to code. They're not very wide. They are falling in. Of course, that's repairable. The 2 additions on each side look like they were done in the late 60s, early 70s, perhaps.
Right.
There is more than likely an asbestos flooring in the kitchen and in one of the additions. As far as trying to keep the home, and in my personal opinion, it would take somebody that really wants to do it.
I got you. So you're of the opinion, and I trust your opinion, that this is a house that is really fallen into disrepair, and it would be a burden on the homeowner to have to renovate this.
Well, I'm just going to say that it's going to take somebody that wants to do it, as it does with any project that you renovate.
Right.
Yeah, Jeanette, I went out there and walked around it today.
Hey,
It's a great old house, but it may just simply be that we're 5 years late.
And that is something I would, just to comment on your comments, Bunny. To me, there's a lot of responsibility on the people that have owned it for the past 20 years. if they have not maintained it and allowed it to be something that can be saved, sometimes you can't put that burden on the next homeowner.
Well, I would say too that I own
Well,
a house
Jeanette,
that nobody had lived in for 2 years, and people were afraid to buy it too for the same reason. And there was water downstairs and stuff. It does, but there you also have, and I will say this to the person who purchased it: he knew before he closed on this house how we felt, and he's chosen to buy this house, assuming we're going to allow him to tear it down. And I think we've heard from so many people on that street have reached out. So we don't want this house torn down. It's an attractive home. It can be restored. It's an old house. It's not a new house. It's a lot cheaper for the builder to tear it down and put a 7,000 square foot house up there. He can make a lot more money.
This is Gavin, Duke. Just trying to think about, has any exercise or could there be an exercise done to show us the existing house, the elevation, and how that could work with a new build? I think the thing we're looking at here is the character of the street. And if the scale of the existing house, everybody sort of in the neighborhood likes, I think there could be a way that we could, if there's a study to show us how big this new house is in proximity to or in relationship to the new build, that might help us kind of see the scale and proportion of what is being put in versus what's there existing.
Well, in real round numbers, I just went to Zoom and walked down the street and checked the other houses. There are a lot of older cottage homes on that street that have been restored and expanded and renovated. The next biggest one I saw was like 4,200 square feet. So the scale and mass of what they're proposing to put in here at 7,500 square feet is just totally out of the question.
Preston Shea here, if I may clarify. The FAR on this home is, I believe, 7105. So that's including, heated, unheated, attic up to 5 feet. The heated and cooled square footage of this one is 5,595, which isn't a small house, but it's not 7,500.
Yeah, now I think you're looking at the overall FAR, not the finished space of the house.
I'm looking at the drawing that was submitted that shows, and it's pretty blurred, 3,566 square feet FAR on the first floor. Looks like 3,176 on the second floor and 364 in the attic.
Correct. That's the floor area ratio, which considers everything enclosed, heated or cooled, including attic up to 5. I believe it's 5 feet rather.
5'6".
5'6". So that's not.
Y'all got the
grandbaby. Heated and cooled.
How are you?
So that's not the heated and cooled, comparable number for the neighbors, and it is again within the Belmead standards.
Yeah, we may have to go back and fix those figures.
I think it would be real helpful to see an elevation overlay of the existing home over this proposed home for me. I would like to see the scale of what's existing versus what's proposed.
I believe there's a plan view of that in our submittal. Lyle, can you pull that up, please?
I'm sorry.
While you're
Joel.
doing that, I will comment on a couple of things as far as the plan. I'm sure we'll get into massing and things of that nature next. But one of the things that we currently have shown is 12-foot ceilings on the first floor and 10 on second. We could drop that back down to 10 on the first floor and 9 on the second. We are within the height restriction, but if massing is a concern about the elevation, we could look at doing that.
Joel, what did you want me to pull up?
There's a plan view
before we move into a study of the new proposed home, I think we've got a decision on the table where we stand on its demolition, because if we vote up or down on that, it's going to determine where we head with this discussion. Would that be correct?
That's correct. I think we
fair.
should do one before the other.
I'd like to interject my thoughts relative to the discussion about demolition. The board did an exhaustive process preparing guidelines that we established and are published on how we would be evaluating properties of significance. And we met at length and discussed at length our concerns about just what is before us. And we also had a project that was before us last month that we approved that had similar discussions. And I would encourage not only the board members, but the applicants to look at those guidelines, because we were very clear, at least I was, in my concern about this, about houses that are falling into this condition. And I don't think it's the applicant's fault that it's falling in this condition. And houses that one member may deem historically significant and another member may not, or neighbors. But I think if you would read what makes a property of significance and evaluate it based on that, I think that's what we have to do. And that's what the applicant needs to be presenting on. I'm happy to go through those in a little bit, but I'm like Mal, I'm on the fence here. I've seen the house, but to my knowledge, I haven't done a number or a count of what criteria it meets, but we're going to have to come to a position, the board, is how we evaluate just this. And I think we have to fall back to Belmead's heritage, what the Historic Zoning Commission reviews, and go to properties of significance, and that's how we review it. There are very specific things that we need to be evaluating. This is not, I'm trying to take emotion out of it and bring some factual data into it. Because we're going to run into this, not just here, but we're going to run into it on other projects. And we did do a similar evaluation on the property that we approved last month on Ellersdale.
And Ron, I'd like to add to that, just to make sure that we get information about that block. I think it would be helpful to know the images for all the other cottage homes that Mal is referring to. I'm not sure if that was in the packet. Was it, Lyle?
I'm sorry, Gavin.
The packet that was submitted, did it have other houses that were along the street that were examples?
Let me look. No, we don't have, we have this.
Inspirational, yeah.
Inspirational here. Nothing on the street per se, I don't believe. Well,
Hey,
that's not on the street.
Preston Shea, if I may, coming out of last month's meeting, it was obvious that some of the neighbors didn't care for the style of the home, wished it did, was more in keeping with the neighborhood. So our directive was to revisit the street, draw inspiration from the other homes, which we did. Now, we did not present a formal collection or photographs of the neighborhood as a whole, but we did follow the commission's lead and completely redesign the exterior of the home to be more compatible. And this home is also a little funny in that it's got a Bellevue South address, but it fronts Bellevue West, and there are only a couple of homes to the left, and this one is very much in keeping with those homes, both style-wise and maybe massing, though. I agree with Joel. We might drop the ceiling height a little bit.
Yeah, do you know the height of the current house?
It's, just guessing, Gavin, it's, we got 8-foot ceilings, floor joists. It's probably 28 foot with the roof pitch, somewhere in there, I would guess. One thing back
And
to
you've
the
got
demo.
3911, I guess, almost 40.
Right, which that's that, I mentioned earlier we could drop the ceiling heights. We could squeeze out another 3 or 4 foot just by doing that. But back to the demo, last month, the Elladale property, a big topic of discussion with the demo was the reason it got approved was there's 8-foot ceilings and water issues. And so, it was mentioned earlier that I went ahead and closed on the property, not knowing if I could demo or not. That is true, but I felt like we meet those type of requirements on this property. And based upon sitting through the meeting last month, I felt comfortable that this would get approved to be demoed.
Well,
And
I think what I would say that is that house had foundation issues where the water over time had moved the foundation. And the windows were below grade on the other house in the back.
This has got very, very similar issues.
I looked at the foundation of this house there. I don't see anything wrong with it.
The pictures do not do it justice. There's water intrusion coming from, the grading issue, but that's not the only entrance of water into the home. Every wall, the sides and the front of that foundation leak water in a heavy rain. It's not just coming in the back.
I can verify that, having gone through it a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, because it's probably the gutters and it probably needs a new roof too.
No, it's coming. It's a stacked stone wall. It's coming through the stone.
And again, I think, and I know it's been a short time frame, but it'd be helpful to have a topography to see where the water's coming from.
I think that we need to, as somebody said a while ago, before we discuss the new house anymore, we need to make a call on this demolition.
And also, regarding demolition, with 8-foot ceilings, there's no way to work around that. There's, living space above those areas.
Well, I understand for you, the most cost efficient and expedient thing to do is to tear it down. I understand that you make a lot more money and that that's what you're doing. You're in this to make money, and that's your goal here, is to make the most money you can on it. And so I understand tearing it down and building the biggest house you can possibly build is the most financially expedient thing for you to do.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I mean, that's what I do for a living, but I also considering this being my personal residence. So, it's beyond, there's no way to address the 8-foot ceilings. And it's not, I'm not looking at it as a cost issue. That's not even crossed my mind.
This is Jeanette Whitson. I would also say that, when I'm renovating and looking for renovations, I would have to say that my main problem with trying to modernize something for modern living would be an 8-foot ceiling. It's very difficult to create something that is feels like a modern living space with an 8-foot ceiling. Especially when it's this type of colonial house that's 2 stories. Sometimes when you have a Cape house where you have a 2nd story fit into the roof, you can take the ceiling out and create a larger ceiling. But an 8-foot ceiling is a large consideration for me, and I am also 50-50 on the tear down for telling a homeowner they have to live with an 8-foot ceiling in the main areas of their house. It's different when it is a closet or you have a lower and the room heights move, the ceiling heights move, but an 8-foot ceiling is significant. It's a significant burden to ask someone to put the type of money into renovating something in this shape, but be living with an 8-foot ceiling in their main living spaces. That is just one of the ways I feel about it.
Yeah, I think that demolition for the condition that I saw, it looks like it may a little be a little bit beyond some repairs, but I know that what goes back, the scale of it is going to have to be conducive for the neighborhood.
Well, do we want to have make a motion on the demolition?
I think we need to. I think that it's just, we can debate this all day long, but I think one way or the other, the committee needs to make a decision on it.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and I also want to reiterate for the neighbors that are present that this is not an approval of what has been submitted as a replacement. And we're going to look very hard at that structure to make sure that it does blend with the neighborhood if we move forward with a demolition. I want to make that very clear.
I want to encourage my committee too, before we vote on this. One of the reasons that people are not restoring the old homes in Belmead is because they've become cost prohibitive because the ground is worth more and it's cheaper to build a new house. And I think that what we're doing, if we approve the demolition of this house, is we're giving up on the old houses. And it's basically just, I'm not sure why we're here.
Well, I'm
going to make a motion that we deny the demolition permit.
Do we have a second?
Before we, can I make a comment?
Yes.
You can see if you get a second first.
We get a second first.
Then you have discussion.
What was the motion?
To deny demolition permit.
State your name, please.
Bunny.
I'll second the motion. So it's now open for discussion. Ron, what were you going to say?
I'm looking at the guidelines that we established and published. I'm going to take the time to read through them and emphasize the ones that I feel are notable on this case. As I said, I'm sympathetic to all parties involved, but what I'm most concerned about is the guidelines that we established on how we would evaluate something like this. There to be properties built prior to 1939. Second one is possess integrity of design, materials, workmanship, setting, location, feeling, and association as defined for eligibility for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. You do a deep dive into that, and I have. I struggle that this house possesses integrity of design, materials, and workmanship. Embodies such other qualities and characteristics as in the judgment of the HZC should be considered significant to the historical and architectural context of Belmead. Be listed or determined eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places so that it meets that criteria. A broad cultural, political, economic, or social association with historic development of Belmead, the state or nation, and or. I don't know the answer to that one. These are applicant, these guidelines are the responsibility of the applicant. Let me say that. Identification with historic person or with important events in Belmead, state or national history. Possess distinguishing characteristics of an architectural type reflective of the dominant style in Belmead and is inherently valuable for the study, period, method of construction or use of indigenous materials or craftsmanship. Possess authenticity of its period of significance as evidenced by survival of its characteristics, historic fabric, and architectural elements. It is notable work of a master builder, designer, or architect. Possesses or may likely yield information important to the prehistory or history and or possesses other qualities and characteristics that in judgment the HZA should be considered for designation as a significant property. That's the broad reaching one that we're all struggling with. So I'm not sure if we need to take a vote. I would move for deferral, but not sure if I can say that.
No, we need to vote on the motion.
No, Mel, but Mr. Chairman, the motion to defer takes precedence over the main motion.
Okay.
So that would be a proper motion.
So do we have a second for motion to defer?
I second that motion to defer.
Okay. Bunny?
Aye.
Jeanette?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Gavin? Gavin?
Aye.
And Mel, aye. Motion to defer is approved on the demolition.
And can we have a summary? I think just to make it clear, we do want the specifics of if any information from what Ron has just read very specifically, if there's any information that pertains to those elements can be presented by either all parties concerned.
Well, I said in the beginning that I was 50-50 on the demolition. But listening to Ron reiterate the items, specific items that we're to evaluate, the old place just doesn't click enough of the boxes.
I concur. I think that if they are able to present more of a case showing some of that height and everything when they bring their project in keeping with the neighborhood, that would be helpful.
Would it be possible for us to go in the house, the community commission to go in the house?
Yes, I'd be happy to let you guys do that.
I would say as long as you go individually and not as a group.
Right.
Okay. So how
I can make the house accessible whenever, if you guys just want to coordinate times, or I can leave a lockbox out by the back sliding door with the key.
I think that I'd like to see the inside of the house.
I think that'd be beneficial.
Okay, I'm more than happy to allow you guys to do that.
Can we arrange that through Lyle?
Yeah, Lyle, you can, if we say it's going to be available for a 6-hour period and pick your hour you'd like, or 30 minutes you'd like to go in, we can sign up.
That, or I can leave a lockbox and provide a code and y'all can just go by whenever.
Yeah,
Yeah, to abide by our rules, so we can't be in it together. We have to be separate.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lockbox, Joel, will be best
That'd be
way to go.
great.
And then we'll let Lyle know when we're going so that we don't overlap. How about that? Is that
Sure.
okay, Lyle?
That's fine. If Joel, you'll give me the code of that lockbox when each commission member calls me or emails me, I can give them the code to get in.
Yes, I'll put a lockbox out tomorrow and send you the code, Lyle.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Joel, thanks for your patience.
Sure.
All right, Lyle, new business?
New business.
Hey guys, it's the main feedback on our current set of drawings. You know, we started out with the Italian look, and Preston's has changed that to more of a traditional outside of the massing in comparison to the existing house. Was there any feedback on the style or anything else related to the elevation?
I think until we determine this on the demolition, I'm not prepared to, I mean, I don't want to, as Preston said earlier, he felt like we'd gone way down the road on the other one. And I think that it could be an injustice to you for us just to say, oh yeah, that's all we're concerned about. And then we haven't really studied these plans in detail yet. So I don't want to give you the impression that the only issue that we have with it is that. I feel like we ought to wait until we've looked at this, made a decision on this demolition. Unless Ron or somebody else wants to comment on it.
I think we need a little more information, and the comparison would be nice. I think if we're staying closer in historic value with what's there, that would appease the neighborhood a lot more.
My comment is that if you were plugging a new home onto that lot, that a home of its current style or the higher percentage of the style in that houses would not be an Italianate. So I was pleased to see a shift in its style, something more targeted at the period to most of the homes. I've walked that neighborhood. I've rode my bike through there. I've driven through there. I know it quite well. There is a blending of styles in there. There's some modern houses, I'll say modern, built relatively recently, but the general period of time, I think the current design is more targeted at that than the previous Italianate.
Okay.
Okay, Lyle.
And I would just take a look also that it is a corner lot. I'm sorry, that it is a corner lot, and I think we're going to be looking at that front elevation and that sort of right side elevation pretty hard too.
Okay.
Sorry, Mom.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, I'm going to close that agenda item out. All right, next item under new business, the application for certificate of appropriateness for Todd Huber, 4410 Iroquois Avenue for the partial existing home property of conservation and renovations of more than 35%. Who is representing?
Is that Project Pull?
My name's
Tyler, is that you? Tyler, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, you're up.
Okay, I'm an architect in St. Louis, Missouri, so fortunate. Quick presentation that I can go through.
I couldn't hear you. I couldn't hear you anyway. I'm sorry. Can you start over?
Can you not hear me?
No.
Yeah, we can now.
Okay. I've got a presentation that I've put together. It's quick, I promise. It's not a lot of slides. So Lyle, if you'll go back to the main screen, I can share my screen and go through it.
All right.
Okay, you
What's
can
the
all
address again, Lyle?
I'm sorry?
This is 4410 Iroquois is the address, and it's right on the corner of Iroquois and Jackson. So this is a site plan just showing you the site as it sits on Iroquois is the street running horizontally at the bottom of the page. Jackson runs on the left side vertically.
I'm not getting an image. I'm getting the Zoom logo.
I've got the image.
I've got the image.
Okay, what can I do? What can I do to get the image, Lyle?
It sounds like you logged out of the meeting.
Yeah. I can see y'all and see y'all. I'm just not getting the screen.
We had to.
had to click on the Zoom app icon. We had the same problem. We went back to Safari and
Gotta
so we'll
click
try
on the
it.
little blue video camera.
Yeah.
I don't have a blue video camera. What can I do here? Anybody offer anything?
Were you getting the previous images?
Yeah, everything was fine until just now, and I saw it briefly, and then it went away, and it just says Zoom now.
Well, I would log out and then log back into the meeting.
Make sure your Zoom.us app is the one in front and not Safari. So if you hover over the, or I'm assuming you're on a Mac, but
I'm just trying to rejoin here.
And we may have Lyle try closing down his document and reopening it.
Yeah, why don't we do that, Lyle? Because this isn't getting me anywhere.
Okay, I'm the one who's sharing the document, so I just took it off. Now we're back to the screen with
this wasn't
everybody's
in the
faces
Google
on it,
Drive, right?
Okay, I see you. Now I see Gavin. Okay. So you're going to try to reshare?
So I'm going back to the share. It's loading up.
It says Tyler Stevens has started. Okay, there we go. Got it.
Okay,
great. Okay.
Thanks.
Sure. It's a new technology, so we're all getting used to it. I understand. But this, this is actually good because we get to go through this, and I can show you these slides. I can walk you through it just like we would in a regular presentation meeting. This was a little bit of orientation to the site. Again, Iroquois is the street that's running horizontally at the bottom of the page, and Jackson is running vertically on the left. So this is a corner lot. The existing house is what you see in black right there in the kind of the back corner of the site. The homeowners, Todd and Taisha Huber, happen to be my sister and brother-in-law. And so I've spent a lot of time in Nashville at their current house. I know how they live now, what they like. And they were taken by this house, the existing house that's there. We debated tearing it down quite a bit. We went back and forth, and we looked at it both ways. And in the end, we felt that it actually made a better floor plan to keep the house. So that's why we are keeping it. And it's a rather modest house, you can see by the size on the site. And we can use it, and I'll walk you through how we are using it. The next image that I'm bringing up here is a couple images of the existing house, what it looks like now. It's very nondescript. If you ask what style is the current house, I don't know that I could even give an answer. It's a house that has been hidden for many years behind a wall of vegetation. The lot has recently been cleared, and so you can start to see it now, but it still has vegetation all around the house itself, large bushes. The one kind of distinguishing kind of end or something that's charming about the house is on the left-hand side here. There's a sun porch that faces Jackson. And it has these nice little metal rail details that are on the posts. And so that was one of the elements that we need to take the sun porch off in order to add on to the house correctly. But we did want to save those elements because we think there's a good use for them, and it would be a good way of preserving some of the character of the house itself. It's all brick in terms of its material. But like I say, it doesn't really have a whole lot of a certain style to it. This next slide is a demolition pictures. This just shows you the portion that we're keeping. If you look here in the bottom, the dark black is all the part of the house we are keeping. The sun porch, as I mentioned here, is on the left. That will come off. And then the back has a carport, an open-sided carport, and kind of a bad addition that was a mudroom of sorts connecting. We're going to take all of that off, preserving just the main box of the house, which I think this is in keeping with some of the discussion you've had earlier about some of the previous houses. This image shows then the addition to the house. We're keeping the door, which is right down here, the entry, facing Iroquois as it currently does, although the main kind of view of the house really is from Jackson. I think that Jackson is kind of a nicer view of the lot. We looked at moving the entry over to Jackson and having it come in, but the floor plan just really didn't work as well with the existing house, and we like the idea of preserving the existing living room. It has a fireplace in it, and it's a nice scale for a living room. And I would mention, though, that the interior of the house is much like the previous house you just looked at. It's quite, I wouldn't say beyond repair, because here in St. Louis, we repair everything. Anything can be saved. But here, the inside needs a lot of work, and we're going to do that. We're going to be basically taking it down to the walls, to the stud walls, and then rebuilding everything with new electric, new plumbing, and then drywall and everything on the existing structure. But the structure itself is really good. It's in good shape, has a nice layout, and as you can see by the floor plan here, we're not even changing that many of the interior walls. This lot is also unusual in that not only is it a corner lot, but it has an alley on the north side up here at the top of the page. So it's really surrounded by streets on all three sides, which makes it, well, the alley is not really a street, but three faces that we can take advantage of in terms of presenting the house. And so the plan is to create something that wraps around in a bit of a courtyard to the back, which will provide a private space for the residents. This next image is just an upstairs. I won't spend a lot of time on it, only to show that the existing upstairs is really small. We'll continue to have our upstairs come alongside it, and there will be access through an attic only, but the two won't necessarily connect. This next image then gives you an idea of how it all comes together. You can see on the right-hand side, where I'm circling here, this is the existing house. That window is the existing living room. And then we're coming in, we're putting our addition here, creating a new entry, a new face that will be more of the dominant face to the street, because the existing architectural character of the house doesn't really have a dominant entry, doesn't have any sort of face that presents to the street. I'm also using the roof to transition from a taller side over to Jackson, sloping down and connecting into the low eave that is on the existing house. As you move around to the corner then, this is at the corner of Jackson and Iroquois. You can see how it starts to transition the corner. And then what we're doing is creating right here in the corner a covered porch. And that's where we're reusing those metal columns. Have a nice decorative feel to them, add some detail and some character, and kind of represent what was there historically in the corner of the house. The side on Jackson then has this large gable that will face the street here and create a new face there. So I'm really developing a gabled face to each side to really address the corner and transition. As you come around to the back then where the alley is, you can see again that face that faces Jackson, and then around to another final gable that faces the alley. And that's where the drive and the garage will all be incorporated, and a family entrance in the back that leads into the kitchen. So all in all, we've worked hard to, as you can see, to maintain the existing structure, to use it, to incorporate it. And I think that it blends well. It fits with the character that they like in their personal taste and style. And so we're happy with where it's come, and I'll be anxious to hear your comments about it. At this point, I can stop sharing the screen, or I can go back to anything that anybody wants to see again.
Group, we have questions?
don't have in front of me the materials list. Could we pull that up?
So the materials list here that is put on the screen is what I filled out on the application. As I said, the existing house is brick. It's already painted. So we're going to continue to use brick through most of the structure and then repaint all of it. And we want to change the color slightly, but since the existing one is already painted, I didn't feel it was bad to go ahead and paint the new brick as well. The roof, I do have an option here. The owners are still debating between a shake shingle roof or an asphalt shingle roof. I think certainly the shake shingle fits the style and character of the architecture, but then asphalt shingle does as well. And as you know, this will likely come down to a question of cost in the end. But the rest of it is continuing most of the existing materials that are on the house, with one exception. The existing house on the second floor in the back, the dormers, are currently covered in, I suppose it's stucco. It's a type of stucco anyway, but it's very thin. It's not a true masonry stucco, and it's in pretty bad shape. So as part of the addition, anything that was stucco on a dormer in the back, we're going to be changing to siding, where we can do a nice composite siding and use that for the dormered areas up high. And that will also then continue for the addition for the high areas of dormers and then around on the garage itself.
Anyone else?
Can you pull back up the 3D images, in particular the front elevation? I see some areas. I see exposed rafter tails, like on the left side of the gable, the main gable. Is that consistent?
No, those are not actually exposed rafter tails. If you go to the next image around to the corner, you'll see what you're seeing there is the edge of the fascia as it goes past the dormer.
Okay. All right. Now that makes sense now. Okay.
Okay.
And back to that front 3D perspective. That's a consistent soffit eave detail that's going to be fairly consistent throughout the house. Okay.
What would you call the style of this house?
Well, it certainly has a lot of influence from Tudor. Tudor is a style that we looked at quite a bit. Certainly the asymmetric roof angles, the arched entries, the detailing in the gable. I would point you to as a brick detail where the brick is corbelled out in a diamond pattern, which is a common detail for Tudor. Even the metal posts that we're saving from the existing have a little crisscross pattern that you sometimes see in Tudor as well. So I would say that's probably the dominant language of the house. Even though it's a little bit ironic because most Tudor is a dark brick with dark trim. So this is a modern adaptation of that.
I think that you've done, and I like that you're keeping the house, and I just think the way you've situated on the lot and you've tied it all in is lovely. And I appreciate that you, as a corner lot, you've thought about all the views of the house as well. Can we go back to the front elevation? And this would be, the size of the dormers seem very small on the right side. And is that just a perspective from this, or are they? When I'm looking at it, that's the only thing that jumps out at me is the size of those dormers.
Yeah, those dormers are existing dormers on the existing house, and you know, I looked at changing them and making them larger at first, and after studying it, I and the owners both kind of agreed that we liked those small dormers. They have a real nice character. These little tiny windows that are up there. The rooms inside are very small in the existing house, up in the upper portion. And so those tiny little windows kind of fit the rooms.
Okay. And they're there already.
Yes.
Okay, and then the other thing that I would say is I think a shake roof would be absolutely beautiful on this house. And one reason is you see a lot of roof. There's a lot of roof here. And I think the shake would be very complimentary to that.
It would, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the choice of what he's got here.
Yeah, the asphalt shingle. Yeah.
Yeah. That's an acceptable.
This is Gavin on materials. The Boreal exterior. Can you talk a little bit about that? Oh,
sure. So most people are familiar with Hardy Board as a brand. Hardy is I assume you all are familiar with Hardy there in Nashville as well. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yes. So Hardy is a cement board. It's a cement-based product. Boral has come along. Boral brand pavers. They've been around forever, and Boral has come up with this true exterior siding a few years back that has really taken over the market here in St. Louis. I've used it myself personally. And it's a much better product to work with. It's made out of fly ash and byproducts from wood, like shavings off of wood manufacturing. And so it's a composite wood material that works just like wood. You cut it with saws just like you do wood. You can route it into shapes, which is how you get the good historic moldings and coves up on your eaves, just like they always did with wood. So that's very easy to do with the Boral product. And once it's painted, it holds paint really well because it does not absorb moisture like wood does. So once it's painted, you can't even tell that it's not wood. It's really just man-made wood.
Thank you.
I also like that you kept those little iron columns. I think that's a nice detail.
Is there a 3D image of the right of what is up now? There seems to be a large shed dormer around that corner. I may be misreading it from the two-dimensional plans.
I don't have a 3D image of that, but on the two-dimensional plans, you can see a large shed dormer. That is correct. That's existing on the existing house in the back. That large shed dormer is even bigger now than it will be in the future. If you notice on the demo plans, part of what I'm calling for is the removal of a portion of that shed dormer because it's so large that it just takes over the whole back of the house. And by removing a portion of it, we can make it look more in scale.
So it would be visible from the front view. It would be back behind the right side of that hip.
Yes, it faces Iroquois. If you pull up the elevation of Iroquois, you can see it on there, just the flat elevation drawing. Oh, I said you can see it on there. I didn't draw it in. It's right here where my cursor is. Oh, I'm not sharing the screen.
You are.
Am I?
No, no, I've got control of the screen.
Let's see, how did somebody write on it before?
If you click the,
If you tap your finger, a pencil will come up.
Okay. Oh. Well, I'm not able to write on it. But anyway, somebody's got a pencil going there. If you just draw a box right where you are, to
Right
the
here.
right of that hip, yeah, over and then down.
Yeah.
That's the existing shed dormer.
So it would be ghosted in the background of that right side of that hip right there, correct?
That's correct.
Is that hip flat roofed?
The hip, the dormer has a real low slope roof on it. It's probably like a 1 in 12.
But the hip that is on the right side of that red, whoever drew that, but that hip comes to a flat section there. Is that the ridge of it, or is that actually flat roof? It seems like there's an awkward transition there.
Yeah, it's actually flat roof up there.
Okay.
If you go to the roof plan,
Yep.
if you can scroll there's the roof plan. You see that portion, what you see on the existing house, there are 2 shed dormers, one
Yes.
that faces to the right and then one that faces to the back.
Correct.
Currently, those 2 dormers are connected all the way around. It's one continuous around the corner, and it is a very awkward roof transition up there. So what we're going to do is demo the corner out and reintroduce the hip. That's what you see drawn here. That's new roof of that corner hip, and separate that into 2 separate shed dormers. It
Gotcha.
brings the scale down a lot, makes the back elevation look much better.
Yeah, I know the house a little bit. So my one comment for the front that is based on scale and proportion is that I'm wondering if we go back to the front elevation, we're weighted heavy with the new addition, and I can appreciate that. But blending of that hip with that new gable and its height component, I'm struggling a little bit with. I'm wondering if that hip was completed to a true ridge, would the overall scale and proportion be pretty simply improved? May help you on that right side.
That's something that could certainly be done, to put a little hat up on top of it and continue the hip up to a point. I
know it's
personally
relative
don't
to
know
what
that you
you're
would
talking
notice
about. It's relative to those other hips because they're quite awkward, or those other sheds are quite awkward. So may not help.
I don't know that you would notice it all that much in perspective, and you're right in that the addition does dominate mass in terms of the mass. It's a larger mass and is more dominant mass than the existing house.
Yeah.
And normally when you do an addition onto a house, you try not to do that because you want the historic portion to be preserved. But
Yeah,
here, we're creating a new entry. Really, the idea here is that the existing house is more of the addition.
Correct. No, I'm with you there.
Yeah.
well, group, do we have a motion?
We'll make a motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Bunny?
Aye.
Jeanette?
Aye.
Mal? Yes. So motion approved.
Thank you all very much.
And can
Thank you.
I just say something too? I really appreciate the thoroughness of your presentation and your preparation.
Well, thank you.
Yes,
we do a lot of this kind of thing here, so I'm kind of used to this type of board.
Well, come back and train our residential developers.
It's more your architects, I think. I would never count on a developer to make a presentation.
Well, we
Well,
appreciate
thank you.
it.
Thank you for your time. And
Appreciate the thoughtful preparation and presentation. Thank you.
well done.
Thank you.
Well done. Lyle, last item, new business.
Second item under new business, the application for certificate of appropriateness for Shelby Brown, 815 Westview Avenue, for the partial demolition of existing home, property of conservation, and renovations of more than 35%. And Darby, you are unmuted.
Okay.
So you're up.
All right. Will you be able to pull up the image for me?
It's up.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Well, so I am neither an architect or a developer, but a homeowner. So they'll bear with me here. So this is an existing house that is 815 Westview that is between Harding and Warner Place on Westview. There's a empty lot immediately to the right of it, and to the left of it is a corner home that's similar in size to the existing home that's there. It's owned by Courtney and Bill Decker, that are friends of ours. We honestly tried to stay away from the board and tried to do as little as we could to the house to make it just a simple renovation. But as we got into it and started doing some research on it and some work with the planning, there was a couple of things that we needed to do to the elevation we thought to help add a little bit of character to it. And so that, I think, is what brought us here. Just for a few comments, there's a creek that runs behind this house. This house is in a floodplain, and I've dealt with floodplains with Belmead before. My existing house is in a floodplain. And so basically we are using the existing footprint of the house, which is about 2,300 square feet. And we're not going to deviate from that existing footprint. We're going to stay within that footprint. We've basically kept the first floor pretty much intact, exactly the way it is all the way around. The exception is that the house had a rear addition to the back that was you had to step down into. It went down below the 100-year floodplain. So we had to move the floor in the rear addition up to match the existing level of the house, just to get it out of the floodway so that it would not flood inside the house. And so in doing that, we had to put some new windows. They were already, basically the addition hasn't changed in terms of, just a simple addition off the back with windows across the back, but we lifted the floor and therefore lifted the ceiling. Where we got into I think the main issues that brought us here for the point of this discussion is in the elevation. The house has an existing staircase that goes up into an attic space that was used for storage. And so we ended up doing going up into that space and putting a bonus room and a couple of bedrooms, which brought the house from, I believe, 2,300 square feet to about 3,600 square feet. And to make that livable up there, we basically changed the pitch from a 612 to an 812, which I believe matches the house immediately next door to the left. I believe it is 812, the Decker's house. And then we added 2 dormers to the front and the rear dormer to the back. And then also we did a little bit of dressing over the front door just to kind of give it a little bit more curb appeal. The chimney exists, it's there. The carport exists. We just added I guess a pitched roof over the carport to give it a little character. The existing flat, the roof that was there was not very attractive. And I believe that's about it. The materials, we're going to stay with the existing materials, which are brick. The rear of it had siding. We'll replace it back with the siding on the rear. There will be a little bit of siding on the left side, the driveway side of the house going back, where we have a window that opens up into the kitchen there. There's going to be some siding on that wall. But otherwise, we will keep the brick that exists on the house, and we'll end up painting it. It'll have a composition shingle and be basically some version of a, I won't say white, but a light colored, similar to white painted brick. The windows will be Marvin Integrity windows, divided light with wood interior with the, I believe it's a vinyl exterior. It matched, again, it'll match the conditions of the house next door to it as well. The one issue on the front elevation is by changing the pitch, it does raise the ridge about 3 feet. And so that's, that is the reason that, again, that changes the elevation a little bit, and the reason the dormers were brought into it, to just bring a little character to it as well. As far as the topography or the yard or the land, because it's in a floodplain, we're not going to move a shovel's worth of dirt anywhere. Everything is left existing grade. We're using the existing driveway. And so basically using everything that we can on the house, with the exception of going into the attic and dressing up the front a little bit.
Darby, on your application here, you say the style of this house is ranch, but this is not a ranch style house.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't know what style it is. I mean, it is what it is, I guess. But I don't know what you would call the existing house that it is, but we're not.
You're not changing it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I disagree with that. You're changing the windows, you're changing the front door. It is a change. But one of the things we want architectural integrity, and I can't tell you what style this house is.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would open that. I mean, full disclosure, I mean, I've worked with Ron before, and I asked Ron to help me with this, but he was a little bit busy. But Ron, do you have any comments here to add to it?
I mean, I'm just paying attention to it. I think that the board has been very, very interested in style and identifiable style. And I think that what I'm struggling with is the same thing. I mean, you're raising the pitch of the roof, and I'm struggling with the composition and scale of the windows at the back. Now, that's not a street view, but I'm not sure. I see, are they double hungs? And then we've got picture windows above. That composition there gives me some pause in terms of how that's going to end up. Back to starting with a style component. I think we'd be looking for a very clearly identifiable style as you do renovate the house. The front elevation seems a little off weighted. I'm not sure that I agree with the placement or the orientation of the dormers relative to the overall length and scale of the house. I know that chimney being left of that has always been maybe a little bit of concern of yours, not so much mine. But I think if I was going to sort of broadly say we've got to get this thing into a style, whether it's a cottage, I don't think ranch is a style.
Maybe Cape Cod, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, if there's an issue with it, the facade or the style, a dormer could be placed over the entry that had, made it a little bit more of a horizontal orientation with a smaller dormer in between the two windows to the right. It's still going to give you that head height and what you need. That's going to be a little bit more symmetrical and kind of weighted towards the front door. Is that, when you say you're going to put something on the front door, is that a siding portico that comes out?
we were looking at a stone or a wood veneer, and I think I just put wood on there. But I mean, I think the locations of the dormers. I mean, I'm not, to be honest, not married to anything. I mean, if if there was right now what exists there, we're just trying to improve it and give it curb appeal. And so, the chimney is there, and it kind of forces your hand to some extent that you kind of have to work with that. And so we looked at putting 4 or 5 dormers across the front, or, different combinations, but, the chimney kind of impedes that. I mean, there's an option to put no dormers on it, which is fine too, but it's really just a curb appeal thing that we're going for. More than anything. And so
yeah, I would vote for 4 dormers. I had a house very similar in Sterling, and I had 4 dormers, and it was a Cape Cod style, and it had balance. It would really make it a lot better looking.
Yeah, you've got to figure out what style you're trying to go with here, and then the windows, the front door, none of this matches right now. And the height of the roof relative to the house with 2 little dormers over to the right, it's very disproportionate. And then the little elliptical window doesn't go at all with this. And then are these true divided light windows? I mean, are these windows just 2 glass pan? I can't figure those out either. Are they true divided light on the front, or what?
They're not true divided, they're simulated divided, but they're Marvin Integrity, which is.
So there are actually, they do look like they have divisions. It's not just a sheet of glass.
Yes, that's
drawing. So this drawing isn't reflecting that.
I understand that. Yes.
And then this area around the front door, what is that? So is that like a siding?
No, it's really more of it could be wood or stone. I think wood would look better, but it's basically just a small covered area to come through to the door with a flat roof.
Yeah, I feel like you've got a long way to go, to be honest, on this, to a point where we can approve it. I think that you're at a concept, you're trying to figure out a concept right now, but I don't think these are plans to a point that I'm not comfortable with where this is right now at all. I'm curious what the committee thinks.
Well, I want to voice an opinion on that and say, first of all, I'm really happy that you have taken this small house on a problem lot and you're trying to preserve the size and integrity of the structure that's there. I think you're seeking to do it in a way that we're pleased with. I know that the creek is right behind that house, and so going up is definitely something that has to be done if you're going to improve it. So I understand that. But I do think there's some work to be done with the presentation of the aesthetics, especially of the facade. Now, the back, I do have some issues with, just because I just don't think it's drawn well, for you personally. But I'm not looking at the back of the house per se, but the front, I do think there should be better symmetry. The portico, you could have something, if you referred to some of our reference books, something that's a little bit more in keeping with a Cape Cod style, the 4 dormers across the front, and then change the dimension of that small window from the oval, which doesn't really fit. And it would be okay. I mean, I think that what you're trying to do, I kind of applaud, because you're keeping an old house and you're just adding on it the square footage, and trying to make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah. Well, the other factor here is that we are squeezed with how much we can spend on it because of the floodplain. So we're trying to balance and match. I mean, it with composition and brick and Marvin Integrity windows, it'll match 10 other houses within 200 or 300 yards either way. And it'll be the exact same looking house. I don't know what you would call the house next door to me. It looks just, it's probably not a Cape Cod. I don't know what it is.
It's a cottage style, but I think that's what, if your drawing is a little, if this is fleshed out a little bit more, that will help you. Because right now the windows don't work on a cottage.
You mean the window pattern?
Yeah, just the
Window
way
style. Well, that's, I
pattern.
understand. Yes, I do see that, understand that. It is, we know what we're putting on there, but they just didn't draw those on here, so I apologize for that. I
But
guess.
as far as the materials, I'm good with the materials. I'm trying to give you as much feedback, so when you come back to us, anyone else have any other questions
Well, I'm
besides
trying to think, does this say vinyl for the exterior of the windows?
Bargain integrities, that's what they do. You pick up kind of it's a simulated divided light. And so it, I guess just like any other simulated divided light, it's got a vinyl color that you pick, like white for the exterior, and then the interior is wood, and you paint it to match the interior.
Wow, is that allowed? I can't remember if vinyl's allowed.
I'm gonna have to look back at the material list. I know we allow clad windows. I'm not sure about vinyl.
Yeah, I didn't know if vinyl was approved through the ordinance or not.
It's a Marvin Integrity. It's on the house next door, and like I said, several houses, but I can check that box and see.
Yeah, Darby, they've changed their ordinance at the city, so we need to check that for sure, because I'm not sure that the integrity, well, Lyle, you need to answer that.
I'll check on that. We have a materials list that's in the certificate of appropriateness guidelines. I don't think it's allowed, but I'll double check that.
Yeah, okay, well, we can make sure that we get a window that complies. We're just looking for something that appears to be true divided light.
And I think, Darby, too, kind of following up on what Jeanette said about the back of the house, I think that the back of the house doesn't match the front of this house right now. And I think that I would have your architect work on that.
Yeah, now let me ask you, because see, the back of the house, the lower half is what exists on the house right now. It was just a siding house with actually windows that were not as nice. And so the only thing that we've changed is the dormer coming out of the back, and we're limited to window sizes because of the roof, the metal roof that slopes up to the dormer. It pinches you, and so you only have so much space to work with.
Right.
And so it's not a little bit of it is really more kind of fighting within the confines of the existing house that's there. It's not a new construction.
Right.
Darby, I think it would help the members and me, but the members, if we knew what was existing and what was proposed new, recognizing that you're trying to save as much as you can and work with the challenges of this floodplain lot, that'll help.
Have you already turned that back wall off?
Yes, the rear of it, the back room is already off. That's correct.
So are the back windows on the first floor, the 4 double hungs that are separated by some space, are those new or existing?
Yeah, actually, Lyle, if you could scroll to the floor plan, the first floor plan right there. So you see the great room there?
Yeah.
That's roughly the addition. It comes in basically to about half of where the pantry is right now. But that whole great room off the back and the office nook and the utility room, that area was the addition that you stepped down into that's been lifted up.
But those windows at the back are existing? I'm
sorry, what?
The windows at the back of the great room are existing?
No, but what I'm saying is that that entire rear wall back there, we've taken it down and we're having to raise it up because the floor had to come up about 2.5 feet.
Gotcha.
Are you reusing the windows? That's what
No.
they're asking. Are these all new?
Yeah, the windows that were there were not reusable. They were, anyhow, I won't comment, but they weren't reusable.
So, right. So everything on the back elevation is new. All those new windows.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it seems like we would be consistent with the style that you develop up front if we are doing all new windows.
Mm-hmm.
So the windows would match all the way around, but I don't know if that was what the the question was in terms of the back.
Lyle, I guess, is the carport allowed? Is that already there?
Carport was
there.
there. Hold on. Can you see this picture I'm showing?
I
Yes.
just lost you back to
Okay.
Zoom again. The same thing just happened to me again. So if you could reload that.
Carport was already there, but it was torn down and a new carport is going in, and technically that needs to go to the Board of Zoning Appeal.
Okay.
But no garage, there's just a carport, correct?
That's correct. I'm going to try to show you the back of the house. I went by this morning and took some pictures. I'm sorry I can't flip that around.
Well, that's okay. We can see it.
And I can't see anything, Lyle. I'm just back to that Zoom logo again. I don't know why it did that. I mean, I haven't touched anything. It's done it twice. It's just like it drops it.
Well, I lost my internet a minute ago, so Bunny, you may be losing
That's
it
probably
too.
what, I bet that's what happened.
Yeah, you're losing it, and I'm just picking it up on my phone when I lose it. So
Okay.
Yeah, I could.
Well, I think, Darby, is this feedback helpful to you?
It is a little, but I think the struggle is that the architect. I mean, I can go circle back with Ron and look at some images and try to, look at. It's just that we're working with, with a fireplace, a front door, and window locations across the front that are very, very restricted. And I guess the things that I can play with are very limited. Again, the dormers and the covered entry, let's say that those were not there. I don't know, they were put there to try to add character. And I understand what you're saying, to try to give it some type of character that's in line with a theme. But the house itself kind of had a theme. I don't know what theme it was. It was probably, not much of a theme. And so if we look back at the original picture, I mean, we're really, again, are trying to walk a line of renovating it, but at the same time, we're not trying to tear it down and put up a Cape Cod house. And so
But it has to have, one of the things in our guidelines, and that's why we ask for the style of the house, it has to have a definitive architectural style. And it has to fit within our guidelines, for that. And so, as Jeanette said, we appreciate you're trying to work with us, and that's great. And it's, you're not trying to do something that is different for the street, but it does have to have an architectural style, and then the elements of the house have to contribute to that and define that. And so that's where we're going to have more, I'm trying to, we're all trying to word this to be helpful to you as you go back to your architect.
It seems like the front windows that are there have a lot more character than these windows shown.
well,
if you had
and
a
I
6
think
over 6 window, I think that would be.
I think he's saying he's going to have 6 over 6.
I think he does have it. It's just not drawn. It's drawn as a 1 over 1, which really makes it look plate glass, which is really hard to evaluate.
Well,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not.
I think if this was a 6 over 6, or that your entry facade would look completely different. And if you had the 4 dormers over the 4 windows, and they can be, I think, fit to be straight over the windows, even near the chimney. I don't really know about codes there, but then you'd have something that's approaching some things that are existing in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Darby, are you working with an architect or just somebody drafting?
Well, I guess he's an architect, but I don't know. He does architectural work for some of my friends. And so he is an architect, but he's not a licensed architect.
Well, do you have to have someone stamp these drawings, Lyle?
We should, yes.
It's either an engineer or an architect or someone.
Well, he does. I'll ask. I think he does architectural work for a couple of builders that I know. And so works for a firm. And so I don't know. I think his explanation to me was that if you're doing a house in Nashville under, I don't know what it was, 4,500 square feet or something like that, that he's licensed to do those, but not above.
Well, Belmead
Yeah.
has stricter things than Metro, so.
Okay, well, we can check on that.
Yeah, and I think the front door that you have existing looks a little more appealing than the one that's shown that your architect has. Looks a little more contemporary. I think you could, if you got 6/6, it could go a little more like that front door that you own.
And Darby, going back to the back windows again, that horizontal, that narrow horizontal window, I don't see how that has a place.
Yeah, that's over a bathtub. I mean, that could be removed. It just brings light into a bathroom.
Yeah, that, I think we need to fix that. And as I said, that little elliptical window on the front doesn't really work on this style house either.
So
I make a motion to defer.
now, do we make a motion?
Yes. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I make a motion that we defer to get a little bit of more detail.
Okay. Jeanette,
I second that. Aye.
Bunny? Aye. Ron?
Aye.
Mel? Aye. So deferred.
Do we have enough summary for Darby to come summarize? Or is that what you've been doing for
You there?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
And I've taken quite a few notes here, so. But
Do you need us to restate anything, Darby?
I mean, basically try to shoot for a style and try to, make it a certain style as best we can.
And we need to have more specifics on the windows. And the drawings need to be more accurate. And then the back of the house needs to, I think it needs a lot of work too. You're going to address the issue with the dormers.
And then Lyle will check the ordinance for the code on the windows.
Right.
And then materials, yeah, too. Just, are you doing stone or are you doing siding? What are you doing around the front door?
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I'm not clear is the kind of the everything I think I'm pretty clear on, except the back of the house, because there's a dormer that comes off of the back there. I mean, there's not a whole lot of flexibility there, other than maybe the fewer windows, more windows. I mean, it's a dormer.
But you're doing the dormer. You're building the dormer. It's not existing, right?
Correct, but I'm just saying there's not many options to do to the dormer other than maybe like window patterns.
I think window patterns was the main emphasis
Yeah,
there, showing the patterns and the arrangement.
Okay. Okay.
And I think, I know you'll need a topo to go before the BZA, and we usually require a survey and a topography with that survey.
So I did submit I did have a survey done with an elevation certificate as well. And
There's
so
clarification.
Okay. I don't know if I got one in my packet with all the.
I think I submitted I will make sure that you have it.
There was a letter, but I did not see a site plan. Sorry.
Okay.
There's clarification on the windows. Wood construction is preferred for windows, especially those on fronts of dwellings. Other acceptable materials are composite and professional grade vinyl and aluminum. Windows shall not incorporate vinyl or aluminum frames of contractor grade.
Okay.
And you might, I don't know what you're going to do about the carport, but I think that's going to be a challenge for you too.
In what way?
Getting it approved.
Bunny, I think it will be approved. It was existing.
Even with the chair, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought somebody said he was tearing it down and rebuilding it.
Well, it is torn down, but it was existing, and we can prove that it was there from Google Earth, and I actually took pictures today. Obviously, that's going to totally be up to the Board of Zoning Appeal, but I don't anticipate it being that big of an issue.
Okay, alrighty.
All right, thanks, everybody. Long day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Do we have a motion to adjourn
Make a motion, we adjourn.
and a second?
Second.
Gavin?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Mal? Aye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know,